Alright, hey everybody, we're actually getting ready to go out on the Elliot Knob trip. As we're going on a 2-day trip, we'll be heading out on Sunday and returning on Monday, spending the night at the top of Elliot Knob. There's a lookout tower up there, and it's about 4,500 feet and a good bit of wind, so from what we understand. So first thing that we have to do is we're packing our bags for the trip. Now the first thing I use, this is just a REI frame pack. This is our Crest Trail 70. So let's talk about some of the things that I camp and how I actually pack my bag. Now one of the first things that I do is get all of my big stuffy things like sleeping bags and that kind of stuff down in the bottom of this to carry a lot of that, and it's a little bit softer ride. And it's a little bit bulkier too. So let's start with the actual sleeping bag. This is a Copen sleeping bag. I really like this one. I've used it a couple of times. It's fairly new. This is a 15 degree now. On this trip, it's the middle of winter, so we're talking about hitting probably in the mid to low 20s. So this should keep me warm just fine. I've been out in 30-degree weather and was really hot and had to unzip in here. So this should be a really good thing, especially in a hammock system that I have that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. And I'll take this and I just push this down all the way in the bottom of my bag. I'm kind of a stuffer, so I like to get stuff all the way down in there, really tight down in the bottom part. You see that? It's all the way down in the middle. Alright? The second thing I have is this is my underquilt. Like I said, I am a big hammock camper. I don't sleep in tents. I love hammocks. They're comfortable. I sleep well. I feel rested. This goes underneath the hammock, and when we get out on the trail and we set up, you'll be able to see that. But this is the underquilt. The underquilt weighs about a pound, maybe a pound and a couple of ounces. Really light. I take this and I stick this down right down next to my sleeping bag. And what I'll do is I'll just push that down and kind of roll it towards the back until I get it almost even on the bottom with my sleeping bag. And like I said, this bag has tons of space in it. I love it. And it's not too heavy either. So I don't know if you can see it, but this is shoved down in there. And I'll even cover some of the flaps here to make sure that it stays down. Alright, so that's the next piece that I go into. Alright, then I have a bunch of little odds and ends that I'll pack on top of that. Now, like I said, I have a hammock system, and part of my hammock system I use what's called snake skins. Again, we'll see that out there, but I just slide those snake skins down. It slides in, so this is my complete hammock system right here. Now, I don't just throw this in here. I'll typically put it in a stuff bag. I have a large bag here, I guess, and I'll just stuff that down in the middle. You'll see I also have a fly, a tarp that goes over that. That's to keep the rain, the snow, a lot of the wind. It blocks the water, that kind of stuff. I'll stuff that down in that bag as well. Now the next thing I do is, because I have plenty of space in this bag still, and I know I'm not going to need that stuff till I get to my campsite, so I tend to put the stuff in here that I know that I'm not going to need until that time. Now I have a small, they're called MSRs, they're a little pocket stove that I carry. Just weight's a big deal when I'm out here. It's a really small stove, it does well. The wind can get to it a little bit, but I'll put a little aluminum shield around it. This goes on top of an MSR ISO Pro, and it does a great job. It'll boil water in about 2 minutes, depending on your altitude, but it's a great little tool. You got to be careful. Sometimes it'll kind of slip around on the top, but I use a cup, and I'll be showing that to you in a second. I just sit down right on top of that. All right. You know, we're going down, it's near Staunton, Virginia, and it's going to be the first time we're doing this trail. I haven't been out on it, so I'm kind of excited. My son is in his early 20s. He's going to be going with me. Excellent time. You'll get to meet him later on. All right, put our little stove in here. That's excellent. All right, so I have a stove in here. I take a couple of these. They're the MSR ISO Pro for fuel. They run about, $4.50, $5 a piece. I don't like to say about time. Typically you can boil about 11 liters with one of these. I'll typically won't need more than one, and I could probably do 2 trips with this, maybe even 3. I always take 2 with me though. Sometimes when you disconnect the stove, for some reason it won't seal shut, and then all of a sudden you find yourself out in the woods with no way to cook. So I always take 2 of these. They're pretty light, they're small, you know, your stove kit just sits right down on top of it. So I'll stuff these in here as well. Now there's a couple of other pieces that I'll have in here. You'll look, I have my webbing, my tree straps, that's for my actual hammock. I have a couple of those, one for each side. Kind of dump that in there. I have some parachute cord here that I've wrapped up. I have a couple of these that I use. This one I use primarily for my tarp because I don't like the hanging on my hammock strings. So we got that. And then I have a little shovel for, you know, when you have to go out to the bathroom, that sort of stuff. You're supposed to be digging a hole. Especially in the wintertime, you don't want to be doing that with your hands. You got your gloves on, it's cold, the ground's hard. So I'll take this little guy with me as well. And the final piece is, you know, sometimes trying to eat. I have a fork and spoon system, but I'll just take a spoon with me. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I prefer that over a fork. And I'll stick my spoon in there as well. So that's pretty much it. That's everything that goes in this bag. That's my tent, my cooking gear, my fuel, everything's in here. This is probably my heaviest bag out of all of it because everything's kind of stuffed in there. But it's not too bad, considering that it's winter camping. Most of my clothes I wear in, or I can wear in, so that's not going to add a lot to my pack. So what I'll do is the next thing I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll turn this kind of sideways. And I'll stuff this one down in there as well. Now if you look, like I've put a lot of stuff in here so far. I got my cooked stuff, I got, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And if you look, my pack's not even half full yet. So we have plenty of room in these packs. They're light. I like them. They keep you from hurting your back, kind of a little more rigid. I like that. Some people like a softer pack. For me, I like this hard pack that goes along with it. Just helps me out, make sure I don't get hurt, that kind of stuff. Alright, I always carry my Leatherman with me. I actually keep 2 knives with me. I have my Leatherman, and usually I'll wear my Leatherman on my belt. I don't necessarily put it in there, but I'll store it on the side belt for the bag. In the front of the bag, there's a couple of pockets along that, and I'll just put this over here in one of these side pockets. That way I can access it really easily, that kind of stuff. Alright. The next piece that I have is I always carry an emergency little light. I just picked this up. You can see it's like it's LED. I don't know how bright that was. Did that blind you? So anyway, I'll carry this. There's little hangers inside the back of this bag. I don't know if you can see them, but like down here, there's a couple of little hooks down here where you can hang some stuff. You know, I'll know where it is, it won't get lost, so I always put this one right here. I don't really use it camping, but if I need to get to something, I know exactly where it is. I just drop that right in there like that. The next thing is I love these. I don't know a lot of people. I have a bunch of little the clippies here. I wouldn't put any weight on these. These are really cheap. I just use it for like hanging stuff on my line or drying stuff out. But I love these tent pegs. I've been using them a couple of times. They're really light. They're made out of aluminum and they're strong. So I use 2 of these basically for my hammock system. Then I'll have 2 more just in case I need to nail my tarp down. A lot of times if it's really windy, I'll pull it out, run a second tarp off to the ground, and I'll show you that piece in a minute. We're actually sitting on it at this moment. But I'll nail that down on one side and then I'll tie it to that white cord that you saw that I showed you a few minutes ago. So I'll take this, and I just typically take this little black one right here, and I clip it in as well on this other one that's on the other side. And all that rattling doesn't happen once you have everything in there and going. I just like to put them up here to make sure it's not cutting anything or anything like that. But I don't know if you can see that. I just kind of hang them in there on that loop. Alright, so we're just about done here. I have a few things. I keep my bandana with me. And so usually this is more of a summer thing, but at the same time, you know, I'll put it, I've treated this with insect stuff, so it kind of keeps the ticks, the mosquitoes, that kind of stuff away from my face, off my head. And I'll typically put this in the top. I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. There's a little pack up here in the top. That's accessible. I just drop my pack. Same thing for my hat. This is just a little fleece hat that I have. I love this thing. Keep you really warm. It's excellent, especially for this cold weather camping. I'm just going to keep this right on top as well. All right. So of course on top I have my toilet paper, my toothpaste. My toothbrush isn't in here, but I'll typically put a toothbrush in here. I have a little travel size one that I do. That'll go in here before the end of the night. Whew, that's a lot, you know. All right, so I have a couple other things here. I have my handy little headlamp, and these things will save you, especially when you're walking around in your camp. You want to make sure the little button's on top here. But you know, you just put this on, you get to walk around camp, and you'll see this. This is how it's going. Now it'll blind you if I look at you straight in the eyes. This thing's really bright. I really like this one. I got this from an Eastern Mountain. It's called a Fuel, and it really works well. Basically, I'll stuff that in the top. That's what I know what it is. I have another little LED flashlight. It's great. This one's just for walking around. A lot of times I'll hang it. I have a guideline that's on my, I'll just hang it up there on the top and read with it. It has this little cover on it that makes it great. That way I can read a book. I like to read my Bible in the mornings when it's quiet, nobody's up, and kind of watch the sun come up in the mornings. So anyway, I have that little light right there. I'll put that in the top as well. I have a few other things here. I have my little pocket towel. This is good, especially, you know, sometimes when you're cooking, you'll get all that black stuff. It's very absorbent. It's just a little camp towel. I'll put that in the top right there. There's one other piece here. I put this on the side. I keep this just in case. This is a really small Leatherman. It has scissors, a couple of knives, things in case you get splinters, that kind of stuff. I'll keep that with me. I have a magnesium strike. I really love this thing. I've had to use it a few times. It's really neat. You just kind of like scrape some of the magnesium metal off of it. It's very flammable. The little cotton ball, I showed you cotton balls earlier. A couple of strikes, it's lit up. You just got to get your fire bundle together. We'll talk a little bit about fire bundles later and how to create fires if you don't have anything. This has become kind of a hobby of mine. So anyway, so this is accessible. I come down here to these front pockets. Remember we said we had these little things on the front, and I'll just drop this in here with my Leatherman. I don't necessarily get to my Leatherman very often when I'm hiking, so it's not a big deal. It's more when I'm in camp, but I like to have it just in case. You never know if you got to cut yourself loose from something like that. I carry an aluminum bottle, water bottle. I also carry a plastic one, and we'll talk about all the different. I carry 3 different types. This can, worst case scenario, the reason I keep this, if I had to, I could hang this over a fire, hang it up, put water in it, water would boil in it. It could purify water in here if I needed to. You can do that in a plastic bottle too, but it keeps kind of warped and it really messes them up. For this, it's no problem. You just got to take the plastic top out, or who knows what kind of problems that you'll have. But typically, I'll stick this in one of my side pockets for my water. This is an excellent backpack for this because you kick it sideways, it locks in, and you see it's perfect for that. It'll hold on to it. It's accessible if you need to get to it. If I'm carrying extra water, I'll do that as well. All right, over here on this front pocket, not on the outside, there's several pockets here, but the next one down, you'll see there's a pocket right here. Basically, I use the Sawyer water filtration. I try not to have to carry a lot. These are 2 liter that it'll hold, so I'll do this. It's really light when it's empty. Now, when you carry it in, it's going to add several pounds to this pack, but I'll stuff that down in there. Of course, I have my filter. The filter's not too bad. These last quite a while, just you got to be really careful. We're going out camping when it's like 20 degrees, so you got to make sure these things don't freeze. If they freeze, the fibers get messed up and they'll stop filtering on you. The other thing, the Sawyer, that I like about it is it's a 0.01 micron, and there's not many systems out there that have that. Most of them are 2 and 3. And really, if you start looking at any of the disease control or the environmental stuff, really it needs to be, you need to get a 0.01 micron when you're filtering water. Or there are a few things that can get through that if it's any larger than that. Next thing I carry with me a lot of times, especially if it's 60 or lower. I know 60 sounds crazy, but people actually die of hypothermia at 50s and 60s. As a matter of fact, along Shenandoah in the mountains, that's one of the biggest times when they find people with hypothermia, because they don't think about sleeping on pads or having quilts under hammocks and that kind of stuff. So I always keep an emergency blanket with me. These are really cheap. They're like $2 or $3, and it may save somebody's life. I just carry it with me. You know, and I put this up here in the top and with all the rest of the stuff like my toiletries and stuff like that. Oops, wrong one. Get this back. All right. So the next thing I do is I carry my phone, but I don't trust my phone. I have several survival items in here. I always carry a map, and I use the illustrated National Geographic. This is the one with the place that we're going, so it shows elevations, how fast you're going up in elevations. I know about how long it's going to take me to hike it, based on how many miles and what the elevation is. I also keep a New Testament Bible in here. Like I said, I like to read in the mornings. And then I have a compass that runs with that so I can mark my places off as we travel along. And who knows, you know, trails change every once in a while, and I like to get lost every once in a while. It's part of the fun. Just be careful if you're out there doing that. So I usually stuff this down in the front. I refer to it a lot when we're packing through. I just like to take notes on it. I have a little notepad that I stick in there. I have all my weights and stuff for this video right now, but I'll put my little notepad in there as well. Alright, so I just zip that up. That's good. Finally, I have my trusty buck knife. I've had this thing for a long time. I'll typically wear it on my leg or on my belt. This is the one that truly goes on my belt. If I get separated from my pack, it's fine, and I can do that, and I have that with me all the time as well. Also, it's not only just for like working out in the woods and having that, it's also protection. You never know what or who you're going to run into out there. For now, I'm just going to put this in here and hook it to one of my hooks, but whenever I get on the trail, I would put that over on my belt. All right, finally, the last piece that we have here, or second to the last piece that we have here, is food. So I don't know if you see this. I have a Hennessy hammock. I actually put my food in this thing. It seems to be about the right size. I can hang it up at night. Has a little thing on here so I can keep it away from bears. That's a big deal. Now in the winter, we don't have to worry about that too much. But I still like to get in the habit of it, so I'll throw it over a tree limb and get it out of the way. This is about, we're going on a 2-day trip, but it's only one dinner. So it's a little under 2 pounds of food. I'll probably bring some of this back. You'll notice when you're out hiking, you're not going to eat the way you think you would on the trail. All right, so that's just about it. I'm going to move this out of the way and kind of pack it all up nice. But I'll stuff this thing down in here as well. Kind of right there on top. I know it's kind of crazy, but it's easy to pull in and out. I'll just throw that in there. Like I said, I'm kind of a stuffer, so kind of stuff that along that back side. And also, when it's raining down, that'll capture a lot of the water and stuff that's in there. All right, so let's zip this thing up real quick and we'll be ready to run. All right, well that's it. Thank you for being with me. Thanks for watching the channel. If you stay with us, we'll go through the whole next 2 days and we'll be documenting all that as well. So you have a great weekend.